Morning, everyone. Good morning. Workforce. First thing we're going to do is CRC Finance Committee meeting. And what we're going to do, first thing we have to do is the motion and second for everybody's all set with the draft minutes from March 14th. So moved. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Second, we have treasurer's report.
Well, there is the Columbia County Capital Resource Corporation. And we're showing that we have assets of $538,000 because we used the $3,000 that CEDC made as grants to pay the bills for 2022. And if you jump to the next page to the profit and loss statement, you can see we're at a negative 29. Now, when we looked at that, Catherine's been out for a few days, but when I looked at that with UHY, we have to book the $3,000 grant as revenue, not as a loan. So once that $3,000 hits there, that 299 will go to the 593 that you see on the other page. At one point, we had talked about marketing to the top 100 not-for-profits that we have this tool or this vehicle that allows us to assist them with financing projects. I know we had some discussion with the hospital when they were, with some of their plans, but I think their plan got modified and they moved with the larger project in Greene County first. But they do have plans here for other things such as garage at some point, renovating the old administrative office. It used to be the nursing care facility, and this was a very helpful tool when they did their last financing. It's expensive though, $3,000 a year, but if you give it up, you'll never get it back. So one thought would be to revive before COVID, we had put together a one-page flyer and some information so that, and we do have a list of, there are over 1,000 not-for-profits in the county, and I think there are 180 that had over $1 million in assets. So some of them are hidden, but we'll redo the marketing campaign, and we're at least good for this year because the principal expense is the audit. And the insurance. But
I was wondering if we should put a drop dead date at some point for this.
it's hard to do that because the minute you put the drop dead date, the next year someone's going to come in and say, "Do you have?"
Well, maybe
right?
that would
I don't disagree with you, but I think right now it's a cost of doing business. We got it down from $5,000 or $6,000 a year in expenses, but again, we should look at it at least quarterly as part of these reviews.
I think marketing.
Okay. We need a motion and a second, accept the treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next, we have the 2023 draft budget. Go to the last page. And Lisa's got it down for this year's budget and next year's budget. And you'll notice they look the same.
We have to have these in by October 31st, and there's a possibility I may not be here for the October meeting, so Lisa and I decided we would just get, these are pretty perfunctory, so we just get them done, and she would be able to post them all in. And if you do better than a budget that is that bad, you say it's only a budget. Congratulate us. Don't get too excited.
Any public comment?
Just 828-4500. That must be
That's me, it's Nina. That's me, it's Nina.
What we're gonna need now is just a motion and second to close the finance committee. I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. So moved. Next, moving right along, at the CRC meeting. And the first thing up is motion second for the draft minutes from June 7th, 2022. I make a motion. Questions?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Also, we have, we need a motion second for the draft public hearing minutes from 2022. I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So passed. Next, we have our administrative director's report.
Well, we are awaiting, we did have a conversation with both Redburn connection with the 178 Bailey Boulevard apartment project. I also met with Supervisor Eldridge. My understanding is that they believe they have an understanding with the assessor that will make them comfortable enough to move forward. But with the additional costs that have resulted from the supply chain issues as a result of COVID, they are redesigning the building and making some changes to lower the construction cost. And that will require them to go back to the Green Court Planning Board. And my understanding is they're in consultation with the Planning Board, but that it will not be on the agenda until September. As you'll recall, the IDA has approved their application. I would expect that they will need to amend their application based on the changes that they're looking at, both in terms of total construction costs and benefits. At that point, we would then finalize a pilot agreement that is acceptable to the town and consistent with our pilot policies, and then hold the public hearing. You had authorized the public hearing for this project, but that was based on the other financial model and agreement arrangements. And you really can't have a public hearing for the public to comment on the benefits you're giving if you haven't calculated what the benefits you're giving. So I think I'm very optimistic that it's going to go forward, and I would hope that it would close in 2022. We did, I believe, it was, since the last meeting, I think it was June 30th, Andy made the final closing on the financing for Clock Estates with Farm Credit and just. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we moved into. Oh, I thought I'd given the administrative report. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks for. I forgot we had to close and come back.
Yes.
Rewind the tape, Nina.
Okay, good. Well, we can do the treasurer's report, which
Just did.
basically did. Yeah.
Any questions on the treasurer's report or any of the items I mentioned in the committee of a whole regarding how we're going to market this this tool in our toolkit and move forward, analyzing once a quarter where we are in terms of retaining the entity.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Next, we get the 2023 grant budget, which we just went over. I guess we need a motion and a second to that. Motion. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Any public comment? If not, I moved. Need a motion second to close. All those in favor? So moved. Moving right along, we got the IDA Finance Committee agenda.
The IDA Finance Committee report, we did receive $89,400 from the sale of.
Yes. So we're gonna need a motion second, accept the minutes from March 14th. Second. All those in favor? Treasurer's report.
Okay, we did receive from the, or $88,490 from the sale of the lot 8 in the Commerce Park. We're showing that on the balance sheet as restricted funding, negative $88,490. Normally, those funds are transferred back to the county when we sell a piece of property for the county. But I believe I reported previously that the county has asked CEDC to acquire a piece of land on Route 9H that could be potentially transferred back to the county for use for the senior citizens Meals on Wheels kitchen and potentially other county facilities. That property is $240,000, and my agreement with the county is that the proceeds of this sale would be held by the IDA until we close on that property, and then those funds would be directed by the county. County would direct the IDA to transfer those funds to CEDC to help pay for the property that we're purchasing. They may, on an accounting basis, they may have us send it back to the county and the county send it to CEDC. But we just, I just wanted to explain why we didn't transfer those funds immediately back to the county. And we did it as a restricted asset so that it didn't adversely impact the bottom line, that asset value. We did receive, you'll see when we go to the P&L, we did receive the balance of the administrative fee from Clock Estates. You'll recall when they closed last year, so that they could access the sales tax exemption, they paid a partial fee. The IDA had previously agreed to a fee of $70,000 for the project, which was less than the 1% of total project costs of $12 million, because of the fact that they were financing with farm credit, which is not subject to a mortgage recording tax, so the benefit of a mortgage recording tax exemption did not exist for them. And also about half of their property is subject to ag exemptions. So the pilot agreement was not the benefit was not as large as it would have been if that ag exemption wasn't in place. And I think almost 2 or 3 years ago, the IDA voted that to prorate their fee. Good news is now we have the entire $70,000 in the bank, but you'll see 46,000 in income, but the balance is because I think they paid 24 or 28 last year. On our expense side, we have $2,400 consultant fee, which was the appraisal for lot 8, and also our legal and accounting fees and administrative fees and our insurance. We are looking at, I believe what the accountants are going to have us do is show the 88.4 as income and then credit it back as a restricted amount, because you do have to report it as income regardless of so again, the good news is that we do have $80,000 of available funds in the bank. A fee on the $25 million plus or minus housing project in Greenport generate a $250,000 fee, and we feel much more comfortable when we're back in that position. With the exception of Clock, we haven't had a IDA closing since the WIC 5 years ago, and prior to that, David Ginsburg ended up closing with the IDA, but never pursuing the project. We weren't able to return the fee. So you know, we were getting, before clock and before this housing project, we were getting down to a point where, you know, the cash balance in the IDA account was beginning to get worse, but I think we'll be okay.
So, get a motion in a second. Report. Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Again, we got the draft budget on the last page. Same situation.
This year, we do have, we're projecting for next year, approximately 10,000 for, but $11,000 less in revenue. Again, we put 50,000 for administrative fees because we know, so if you put 250 and you don't close that housing deal, you're gonna look like, oh, what happened? Where you put 50 in every year, which we've done for the last 7 or 8 years, and you get 250, people will say, wow, you did a great job. But this year we don't have the Commerce Park principal payment or the interest. That was the parcel that Hudson Valley Real Estate Holding Company purchased, and they had 2 notes. One note was for the original purchase price, which they paid off this year. We received the final payment by June 30th. But they also have a second note, a penalty note, which is also secured by a mortgage. And you'll recall that you approved a 1-year, 9-month extension in return for an increase in the penalty. There was a little misunderstanding. They thought that we were requiring them to pay $2,500 in cash now to get the extension, and they balked a little bit. And I said, no, it will cost you more if you don't do what you've committed to do a year from now. And so I think my understanding is they're in the process of setting up an appointment for them to come in and sign the papers. But you know, I was a little disappointed when I didn't hear from them. And so last Monday or Tuesday, in anticipation of this meeting, I called, and you know, they were like, well, we're not going to pay you $2,500. Not asking to, saying that because of COVID, the board was willing to give you a 9-month final extension, and if you don't complete by then, you'll owe an additional $2,500 penalty. And you know, the interesting thing is, if you took the penalty and you took what they paid plus interest on the first note, they could sell it and make $30,000 or $40,000 then. So, you know, it's not like we're putting them in a position of squeezing them. If they can't get the building built, they can sell it to someone and we'll get a profit to start. And we have the same issue with them. One of the people are involved in a parcel at the IDA or the CDC on the same basis. But if they are not, they don't come in by the end of the month and sign the papers, I'm going to ask the board to authorize Andy to send them a letter that they're in default on the existing penalty mortgage, just to preserve any rights that we learned. I guess if there's no objection, if they don't, since we don't meet again until after that date. If the board has no objection, I would ask Andy to do that if they haven't signed the documents.
Going on quite a while.
Yeah, I think it's been reasonable considering COVID, but at a certain point, we want to get that property on the tax rolls. And if they won't be hurt. It's not like they'll have paid us $80,000 and their property's worth $50,000. You're going to pay us $80,000 in the property. They want to keep it and do it with something. It's, you know, they've got $120,000 property based on the appraisal from the properties we just sold and the one we're going to put. Any questions on the budget?
We need a motion in a second. I move to accept the budget.
Second.
Also allowing Andy to write a letter. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Don't move. Any public comments? No public comments, I need a motion a second to close the IDA finance. Motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
So,
Okay, now you're gonna open the next meeting, right?
boy, you're,
I wanted to get you out by 9 o'clock. Here I'm making it longer.
yes. Okay, now, we're gonna go into the IDA board agenda. First thing we have is the June 7th meeting, draft minutes, motion and second.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Then we have the public hearing minutes from June 7th, 2022. We need a motion and a second to accept. So move. Second. All those in favor? And now we have the treasurer's report, which we,
Yeah, you have the treasurer's report in front of you, those, all of you, sir, attended the finance committee meeting. Are there any questions on the treasurer's report?
need a motion, second, accept the treasurer's report.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Administrative director.
That was started with. We do think they're gonna move forward with the housing project report. They will be going back to the planning board, in September. They will then come back and amend their IDA application based on their revised finances. We would then, retain a consultant to do a needs assessment and then an analysis as to, whether the pilot that they're asking for is also needed. In other words, they'll do a net present value calculation based on what the industry at the time is looking at as rates of return, probably 7 to 9%, and see if the pilot is too generous or not enough.
It's public knowledge. Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's been discussed here.
Yeah.
It's discussed at the planning board. So, if somebody was, in the know or, followed planning board meetings for entertainment or other, purposes, that, it would, and I don't think the paper has picked up on it yet, but,
How many units is gonna be?
150.
And it's middle income or?
My understanding is it, and you'll have to see if they amend the application, but the current plan was 130% of county median income, which now is about $70,000, just under 70. So, it would be people with $90,000 to $120,000 of household income. And the other housing, the county has asked CDC to become more actively involved in housing after the housing forum held. And the two Galvin projects, one was a low-income housing tax credit project. Fortunately, there's 2 rounds of funding from the state, one in the fall and one in the spring. The one in the spring has less money, and only 2 projects were awarded in the capital region. One in Schenectady, and I don't remember where the second one was, but they are both what are known as supportive housing. And supportive housing gets more points than low-income housing tax credit projects. So, what we hear from the state and the city is that there is a very good, there's more money for the program in the December award, and they believe that the 150 units in Hudson will be approved. Now, as you go out throughout the county, we're restricted by water, sewer, gas, electric, and broadband in one location. And you can't build more than 4 to 6 units of housing, affordable or not, in places that don't have septic.
150 units.
Both. 2 buildings in Hudson, 75 each, so we're looking at how you improve existing housing stock so people can stay in their house, because if you have a house, you better stay there because you can't afford to move. The median sale price now is for the month of June was $410,000, up from $240,000 in 2019. Obviously, that's not the median home value. that's getting closer to 300. But, you know, the median sale price, you could have a month where there are a couple $1 million houses that pull that number up. But it's been consistently over 370 for the last year and a half. So, you know, you know, rental units are equally competitive. So I think, you know, the real question is, how much housing do you need, and in what buckets do you need it? I mean, you know, I think you'll be seeing some high-end apartment, even condo projects proposed for Hudson. But, you know, if someone determined that the county just can't go out and say we need 2,500 units of housing, you got to say we need 100 units of single room occupancy housing to, you know, 300 units of high-end senior living, and fill those tranches, because each of those tranches is a different financial business model and financing model. You know, it's a little bit beyond the scope of the meeting, but I think housing will be something that we'll see more of coming to the IDA. And other than that, you know, Jessica Gabriel, I hope you've all met. She joined CEDC in mid-June. She's a stellar resume and even more experience and the things that we do. And we are running the Columbia Forward program with Bill Gerlich at the Chamber. And we also somehow stumbled into the county thinking of exploring whether to have us be the housing coordinator for the county, where they would provide CEDC with additional ARPA funding. We've been working on consolidated funding applications. One of the projects that applied was Crandall Theater. They want to do a $3.5 to $4 million renovation and rehabilitation. They're not for profit. They're not far enough along to see if the CRC would be a model of vehicle for them, but it is something that's on our mind. Yes.
Block is state, so is that been
Jessica, they have some operations now, right? They have 5 or 6.
They have some SKUs, like some of their products. They'll have, hopefully by the end of the year, beginning of fall, they're looking to do like a grand opening. Actually, not fall, spring, sorry, in the spring, to do some sort of opening.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we also were successful, although I don't see a role for the IDA. We were successful in getting a $250,000 grant for Kleinkill Farms to upgrade their migrant housing. It was a $25 million program at the state level. We advertised for it, coordinated with Hudson Valley Agribusiness Development, the Farm Bureau, and others. We had 3 or 4 businesses apply. 2 of them were not eligible, and the other never called us back. And Kleinkill did apply, and you know, CDC was able to get them a $250,000 grant, and we're moving forward on figuring out what the next steps are for them to get started and get reimbursed by the state.
Okay. So, any questions?
Mike, you know, we're hearing more and more at the chamber about this child care drought in the county. And I was wondering in the pipeline, or anybody that's come forward, CEDC, are you hearing anybody stepping up and want to perhaps opening up a daycare here in the county?
We had 2 calls, but Jessica spoke with the IDA in Watertown? Jefferson County. Yeah, and maybe
Yes, so Jefferson County has done something a little bit different than what we're doing related to their use of some of the ARPA funds. Jefferson County has allocated ARPA money toward a handful of different programs, one being to support daycares. I don't know though, so that's one of their buckets. But Martha, have you heard anything from any of, your, work with businesses?
We did have, a group that, well, we've been working with Carl Florio on the group that, he's involved with, the group that, I guess had closed briefly. I guess they're reopened. And we also, because, through the foundation, through the Hudson River Bank and Trust Foundation, we did have, I believe it was, there's someone who was looking at a church up in Chatham. But I think once they started realizing the renovation, the handicapped access, they were going to be in the basement of a church. I mean, I think that they haven't gone far. And the bigger issue is we can't find an operator. Now, the state has incredible amounts of funding for it. And we are looking at how that might be able to be used. And the interesting thing about the Jefferson County model, though, did it not include training for home-based daycares?
Yeah, it was training as well as working capital.
Yeah, and so, there's a lot more risk to, but and I have the list. I would guess that the bulk of the daycare in the county is home-based. And so, we probably, you and I should have a conversation with Commissioner Gibson as to how I would think that funding would flow through social services or children and family services.
I also like to agree on the board of the Dutch Reform Church of Florida, next event that was out there. There's been discussions out there. Parish.
That may be where I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But is it Matt Woods? Nate Winch, yeah. But, and I think Matt had some involvement. I sent them materials. Yeah. One of our former board members' children. So,
Okay.
but, again, the capital to set one up has got to be $100,000, isn't it? By the time you renovate and paint, I mean, unless you have a walk-in facility where you have to do bathrooms, and you gotta have some working capital. 50 lot. Yeah, you better get that first. Before you renovate the building, in case you can't get it. It is a problem.
Next, we have we just went over the budget, but we have to go around this group, so we're gonna need a second. I'm sorry. A motion and a second to accept the 2023 budget.
Motion.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we had Mike's one over, that's River Valley Real Estate. And unless you got something else, one. Got Clark Estates, which we just went over, and Healy. So, is there any public comments? If not, need a motion a second to close the idea. So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
What?
Are you busy? Are you, your business?